The Eurozone is in a double-dip recession. Could the UK be heading for a triple dip? Figures today showed that UK service sector growth last month was its slowest in almost 2 years, virtually grinding to a halt. This on the day Finance Minister George Osborne gives what is expected to be a pretty bleak semi-annual update on the economy. Here to discuss this is Chris Williamson, Chief Economist at Markit. Hi Chris, of course you compile the PMI data at Markit. Is this showing that the UK is heading for a triple dip recession?
A triple dip is certainly looking that way, yes. We've seen growth momentum pretty much moderate since a brief spike after the Olympics, sort of exuberance there. And we've seen in November near stagnation of service sector. We've got manufacturing maybe stabilising, so they're opposing each other, and construction in decline. Put all those together, and it's a suggestion that maybe stabilisation in November, but a contraction in October. So we're on the borderline. Could be a slide back into contraction in the fourth quarter if we have a disappointing December.
Have we ever had a triple dip recession in the UK?
Certainly not in my memory. We're likely to see this period for some time, as the Governor of the Bank of England has pointed out. There's a bumpy ride here. We're going to be bouncing in and out of ups and downs, contraction, expansions. Things like the Olympics have really confused the picture. It's made it very hard for policymakers because trying to get a handle on the underlying rate of growth has been very, very difficult.
Well, we can't let them off the hook that easily, though, Chris. You and I have spoken before about Osborne and whether or not he should keep to Plan A or not. In your view, how much of the UK's economic weakness can be blamed on austerity? Or is that hard to quantify?
It's hard to quantify, but it's hard to believe that it's not had an effect. I mean, surely nobody thought that by squeezing public spending and raising taxes, you're not going to have an impact on demand and therefore on economic growth. But the hope was that you could implement those and other factors would keep the economy afloat. Those other factors being strong growth in export markets, so you could export your way out of your problems and, in the same process, rebalance your economy away from domestic consumption to manufacturing and exports. That was the plan. Unfortunately, those external events haven't turned out as the government had hoped.
Of course, Osborne today, very shortly, is going to get up and tell the Commons we expect him to say that borrowing will be higher than expected, the debt will be higher than expected, the deficit will be bigger than expected, and growth will be slower. Will that put, in your opinion, pressure on the UK's AAA rating? Come back to me in a second. We spoke to Adam Myers at Credit Agricole earlier. He reckons it certainly will.
I think there's a very high probability that the UK does lose it. Obviously, many other developed economies have been in the same position as the UK previous months, and they've lost their rating, so I don't see any reason why we shouldn't follow over the next 3 to 6 months.
Well done, Chris.
I think it certainly puts pressure on it, but I think that the credit rating agencies will have some sympathy that as long as Osborne states his case that they're committed to bringing it down in the long term, that understandable factors have interfered with the plan. So there are mitigating circumstances out there. So I think the credit rating agencies will say as long as you keep on that path, as long as you have some policies in there to try to stimulate growth that we respect as not ones that will balloon the deficit in the long term, then you may just hold on to it. But I think it's going to be a close run thing. OK, finally, you had other data today from Markit, not just the UK services PMI. Eurozone PMI is looking still pretty bleak. Tell us about that. Yeah, so here we talked about the UK's prospects being dependent upon what's happening overseas, and the Eurozone PMI still very much in contraction territory. So what we're seeing here is the deepening of the Eurozone recession. It's third consecutive quarter of decline in the final quarter of the year. It looks to be on the cards. But while there are some signs of it easing, particularly in Germany, the difficulty is that we can't see any return to growth any day soon. It looks like maybe the beginning of next year you could see some improvement. And much, of course, depends upon all of the factors that have been really hampering business confidence in the euro area, and the banking unity, one case in point, suggests that there's no quick resolution to this. OK,
Chris, thank you very much, as always. That was Markit's Chris Williamson. Let's take a quick look back in time now, and it's 16 years to the day since former Fed Chairman Alan Greenspan uttered perhaps his most famous words, or infamous words. Yes, it's irrational exuberance. Here's what he said on December the 5th, 1996. How do we know when irrational exuberance has unduly escalated asset values, which then become subject to unexpected and prolonged contractions, as they have in Japan over the past decade? The next day, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 1% to close at around 6,382 points. In the next 3 years, the market almost doubled in value before sliding more than a third by the end of October 2002. That's all from us for now, but join Reuters every day at this time to take the pulse of the market. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.